Have you ever been in one of those political debates that just goes in circles? You know the feeling. You make a point, they make a counterpoint, and pretty soon you realize you've had this exact same conversation a dozen times before. It's so frustrating, right? It almost feels like you're both reading from a script you never even knew existed. So, what's going on here? Why does this keep happening? Is it really just a coincidence that everyone seems to land on the exact same talking points, or is there something deeper at play? What if I told you there's a hidden structure, a kind of predictable pattern that shapes how we argue about making any kind of change? Okay, let's take a classic example. You have definitely heard this one. Someone says we should raise the minimum wage to help people out. And immediately you get this response. It's going to be a disaster, businesses will close, people will lose their jobs. It's an almost automatic, knee-jerk argument. Or how about this one, with education reform? The idea that, hey, we can try to change things all we want, but as long as this deep-rooted culture of exam-oriented teaching is there, all our efforts are just pointless. It's that same feeling of being completely stuck. Well, here's the core idea we're going to unpack. What if these arguments aren't random at all? What if they're actually predictable, time-tested moves from a playbook that's been used for centuries to push back against any kind of social or political change? The person who really cracked this code was a brilliant scholar named Albert O. Hirschman. In his book, The Rhetoric of Reaction, he dug into over 200 years of political debates and realized that the arguments against change, again and again, fall into three main buckets. He gave them some pretty cool names, too. And these three buckets are what he called the reactionary theses. I want you to think of them as three secret moves in political debate designed to stop an idea for change dead in its tracks. All right, move number one is the perversity thesis. This one is probably the most dramatic. The logic is simple but powerful. Your well-intentioned plan won't just fail, it's going to actively backfire and make the problem you're trying to solve even worse. It will lead to the exact opposite of what you wanted. And we have a fantastic local example of this in Taiwan. The argument against raising the minimum wage got this great nickname, the braised egg theory. The idea is that workers just want a small raise to afford a little extra, like a braised egg with their meal. But the perversity argument comes in and says, oh no, that will cause businesses to collapse and you'll end up losing your whole bowl of rice. It's a perfect, vivid picture of the perversity thesis at work. Okay, on to the second move, the futility thesis. This one is way more cynical. It doesn't say your plan will backfire. It says your plan will do, well, nothing. Absolutely nothing. It argues that society has these deep, unchangeable structures, and your little reform is just a drop in the ocean that won't change a thing. And this perfectly captures the long debate over education reform in Taiwan. For decades, people have tried to change the system. And for just as long, the pushback has been a classic futility argument. As long as the deep cultural obsession with exams and credentials exists, no policy change is ever going to make a real difference. It's basically saying, why even bother? The third move is the most subtle, and maybe that's what makes it so persuasive. This is the Jeopardy thesis. This argument actually admits your idea might be good, it might even work, but, and this is a huge but, the cost of this new change will be the destruction of some older, more valuable freedom or achievement that we already have and cherish. The debate around pension reform in Taiwan is a textbook case here. The argument wasn't just, we don't want this. It was that, yes, fixing the pension system is important, but changing the rules now jeopardizes something even more fundamental, the rule of law and the government's credibility. So you see the trade-off, the new progress isn't worth the risk to the old established principle. So there they are, all together. You've got perversity, which plays on our fear, futility, which feeds our cynicism and apathy, and jeopardy, which sounds like a very cautious and reasonable call for a trade-off. Once you see this framework, you start to hear these arguments everywhere. But Hirschman didn't stop there. He noticed something really fascinating. For every one of these reactionary arguments, there's a progressive mirror image, an equally uncompromising rhetorical move that's used to shut down debate and push for change no matter what. So let's look at this. The opposite of the perversity thesis is what he called the synergy illusion. This really optimistic belief that all good things just naturally go together with no tough choices. The opposite of futility is historical inevitability. The claim that change is unstoppable, it's on the right side of history, so get on board or get out of the way. And finally, the mirror of jeopardy is the imminent danger argument. the idea that we have to act right now or we're all doomed, which makes any call for caution seem totally reckless. So you see, both sides have their own conversation stoppers.
So, okay, we've identified all these patterns. Why does it actually matter? Well, because this kind of rhetoric, from all sides, has real damaging consequences for our ability to actually solve problems together.
Hirschman basically pointed out this negative chain reaction. First, these arguments mislead us by making everything sound so black and white. Second, they create this toxic us versus them mindset, where the other side isn't just wrong, they're either stupid or evil. And the final effect? This constant gridlock makes people totally exhausted and cynical about democracy itself. They just give up and retreat. Now, this is really important. The goal here isn't to give you a new weapon to win your next argument by yelling, "Aha, that's the futility thesis." The real point is to see the hidden structure of the game so that you can choose to step outside of it and start having a much better, more productive conversation.
So, how do we actually do that? Well, first start, we can acknowledge that there are risks to both doing something and doing nothing. We can get a little skeptical anytime someone claims something is inevitable, and we can try to listen for the valid concerns that might be buried inside that over-the-top rhetoric. Sometimes a Jeopardy argument is actually pointing to a real trade-off we need to think about. It's all about shifting the focus from winning the fight to actually understanding the problem.
So the next time you're listening to a political argument, whether it's on TV or just across the dinner table, ask yourself this. Are they really talking about the complicated facts of the issue, or have they just fallen into one of these old, predictable rhetorical traps? Because being able to spot the script is the very first step toward being able to change it.